The human starship Horizon slowed as it approached the massive station known as the Crown of Stars. The station was not only the political heart of the Zelari Empire, but also a meeting place for dozens of alien civilizations. Its surface glittered with silver and blue towers, spiraling upward like frozen waves of light. From space, it looked like a jewel wrapped in fire. Commander Rin stood at the observation deck, staring through the wide glass. Though humanity had only been in the interstellar community for 2 decades, he could not help but feel proud. His people had come far, from walking on Earth's soil to now standing among civilizations older than human history itself. Yet even with pride, he felt the weight of caution. The Crown of Stars was no ordinary place. Here, words could start wars just as quickly as weapons. The docking announcement echoed. The horizon linked smoothly with the station's port, and Rin adjusted the dark collar of his uniform. Around him, 2 other humans, Navigator Selen and Engineer Oren, prepared to follow. Their role was simple: attend the council gathering, listen, and show that humanity wished for peace. The docking ramp extended, and for a moment Rin felt the silence of expectation. Then the airlock doors parted, and sound returned, the hum of alien voices, the whir of machines, the rhythm of footsteps across marble-like floors. The welcome hall of the Crown was enormous, shaped like a half-moon dome. Golden light shone from crystal lanterns that floated in the air. Tall banners displayed the insignia of the Zelari Empire, a sun surrounded by 6 stars. Dozens of species moved across the floor, their colors, shapes, and voices blending into a living mosaic of the galaxy. Rin kept his pace steady as his group stepped inside. Heads turned. Humans were still uncommon here, and their presence often stirred curiosity. Some eyes studied them with caution, others with interest, but none with open hostility. At least, not yet. At the far end of the hall, a group of dignitaries waited. Their robes shimmered with threads of silver, and guards stood at their sides holding spears that glowed faintly with energy. At the center of the group was a figure Rin recognized from official records, Princess Elara of the Zelari Empire. The princess stood tall, her movements graceful yet light, as if she carried no weight of worry. Her skin carried a faint glow, a natural mark of her kind, and her eyes shimmered like blue crystal under the lanterns. But what caught Rin by surprise was not her beauty, nor her royal attire. It was the way she looked at him. While the others kept their faces formal, the princess's expression shifted into something different. Her lips curved into a smile, warm, playful, almost teasing. She stepped forward, ignoring the careful pace of her advisors. Her eyes stayed locked on Rin as if no one else existed in that moment. When she finally stopped a few steps away, the hall quieted. Even the whispers of alien tongues seemed to fade. Every being turned to watch. The princess tilted her head slightly, her voice carrying across the room with a light tone, almost like a secret shared between old friends. "Do you remember me, human?" she asked. "You saved my life once." The words echoed through the hall like a spark in dry grass. The dignitaries shifted uncomfortably. The guards exchanged glances. Selen and Oren stiffened in shock, looking toward Rin with wide eyes. Rin himself froze. He searched his memory, but nothing came. He had met no princess before, not in the short years humanity had spent among the stars. He had fought no battles here, rescued no royal blood. Yet the way she said it carried no doubt, no hesitation. She believed every word. The silence stretched. The princess's smile remained, playful and soft, but her gaze carried a depth of meaning. Around them, the crowd began to murmur. Could it be true? Had a human once saved the life of the Zelari princess? If so, what did that mean for humanity's place in the empire? Rin's voice, calm but uncertain, finally broke the silence. "I do not believe we have met before, Your Highness." The princess's smile only grew wider, as though she had expected such an answer. She leaned closer, lowering her tone just enough that only he could hear, though her words carried the same playfulness. "Perhaps," she said softly, "you have simply forgotten." With that, she turned gracefully, motioning for the human envoy to follow her. The court, still buzzing with whispers, stepped aside. Commander Rin walked forward, his mind caught between confusion and unease. Whether truth or trick, the princess had marked him with her words, and the galaxy had heard them. The meeting among stars had only just begun, yet already humanity stood at the center of a story far larger than they could imagine. Commander Rin followed the princess through the wide crystal halls of the Crown of Stars. The walls curved upward like the inside of a seashell, glowing with soft silver light. Strange music drifted faintly from somewhere unseen, gentle but filled with rhythm, as if the station itself was alive. Behind him, Selen and Orin walked in silence, their steps echoing against the polished floor. Rin could feel the weight of eyes on him. Dozens of alien dignitaries still whispered, their voices carrying fragments of disbelief. The words of the princess had already spread like fire in dry grass, a human once saved her life. Rin's mind wrestled with confusion. He could not remember such an event. He had been on several missions during his career, but none involved rescuing alien royalty. And yet, the princess spoke with certainty. Her smile, her eyes, her tone, there was no doubt in her. They entered a circular chamber, smaller and quieter than the grand hall. The ceiling here was shaped like a dome of glass, opening to the stars outside. Golden chairs stood around a curved table, ready for council discussions. But at this moment, the chamber was empty, save for the princess, her advisors, and the human envoys. The princess stopped and turned toward Rin. Her advisors bowed slightly, then stepped back, leaving her free to speak. She studied Rin for a long moment, her crystal blue eyes reflecting the starlight above. "Do you truly not remember?" she asked, her voice softer now, free of the playful tone she had shown earlier. Rin kept his posture steady, though inside he felt uneasy. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "I have served in many places, but I have no memory of meeting you before today." A small silence followed. Then, to his surprise, she laughed lightly, not mocking, but amused, as if she had expected his denial. "Humans," she said, shaking her head gently. "So quick to act, yet so quick to forget." Selen frowned and finally spoke. "With respect, Princess, humanity has only been among the stars for 20 years. If Commander Rin had saved you, it could not have been long ago." The princess smiled at Selen but kept her eyes on Rin. "It was long enough for me never to forget." Her advisor, an older Zilari noble with robes lined in silver thread, stepped forward. His expression was sharp, his voice cautious. "Your Highness, forgive me, but such words are dangerous. To claim that a human once saved you may be seen as political." The princess waved her hand, silencing him. "Truth should not fear politics." Then she turned back to Rin, her expression playful again, though her eyes still carried a strange weight. "Perhaps it is better if I tell you the story?" Rin gave a small nod. "I would listen." The chamber grew still. Even the faint hum of the station seemed to fade. The princess began. "I was very young, barely past the age of learning. My father's ship was traveling near the border when raiders struck. They were not strong, but they were many, and they fired without mercy. Our vessel was damaged, and I was placed in an escape pod. The pod launched into the dark, spinning among wreckage and fire. The systems failed one by one. My air was running thin." Her voice softened as she looked at Rin. "That is when a small vessel appeared. Not a warship. Not a cruiser. A simple human freighter. Against all logic, against all fear, it approached. Its pilot forced open the pod, dragged me aboard, and repaired what little systems he could. Then, as quickly as he appeared, he vanished. The raiders were still near, but he faced them without hesitation. She paused, her eyes never leaving his. That pilot was you. Ren felt the words press against his mind. It sounded impossible. He had never flown a freighter, never rescued an alien child. But the way she said it, the way she believed it, it shook his certainty. I do not recall, he admitted, his voice firm but calm. The princess tilted her head slightly. Memories fade. But the act remains. And I am here because of it. Oren stepped forward, whispering to Rin. Commander, what if this is mistaken identity? Or a test? Rin did not answer. His eyes stayed on the princess, studying her expression. The older advisor stepped closer again. Your Highness, such claims will stir the council. Already the other empires distrust humans. To raise them higher with this story is the princess cut him off with a single look. Let them stir. She turned back to Rin, her smile returning, soft and playful once more. Whether you accept it or not, Commander, you have a place in my story. And perhaps the council should hear it too. Rin exhaled slowly. He understood now. Whether true or not, her words had power. If the council believed them, humanity's place among the stars would change forever. He met her gaze steadily. Then it seems my path is tied to yours, princess. Whether I remember or not. Her eyes shone, and she gave a small nod. Yes, she said softly. It is. Outside the chamber, the stars burned quietly, unaware that a single story, whether truth or forgotten memory, was about to shape the destiny of an entire people. The council chamber of the Crown of Stars was vast, built like an arena where light replaced stone. Rows of seats curved upward in circles, filled with delegates from 100 worlds. Voices murmured across the hall, each language blending into a low storm of sound. At the very center stood a raised platform, glowing faintly, where speakers presented their words to the galaxy. Commander Rin stood there now. On one side was Princess Elora, tall and calm, her crystal blue eyes never leaving him. On the other side stood Selen and Oren, uneasy but steady. Above them, high seats held the rulers of great empires, beings older than Earth's history, their presence heavy with authority. The chamber was silent as the princess spoke. Years ago, she said, her voice carrying like music, my life was saved by a human. The words struck like thunder. Delegates shifted in their seats. Whispers raced through the air. Some laughed in disbelief, others frowned in anger, and a few leaned forward with interest. Princess Elora continued, unshaken. I was a child, lost in space after raiders attacked. My escape pod drifted, its systems failing. I would have died. But a human vessel came. Against all danger, it opened its doors and gave me breath again. That act of courage is why I stand before you today. She raised her hand toward Rin. And the human who saved me is Commander Rin of the ship Horizon. The chamber erupted. Some voices shouted in their own tongues, some demanded proof, and others argued fiercely. The council leader, an elder being with silver skin and glowing eyes, struck his staff against the platform to bring silence. Princess, the leader said, his voice calm yet sharp, such a claim must be weighed carefully. Do you bring evidence? Elora nodded. One of her advisors stepped forward, holding a small crystal device. With a gesture, he activated it. Above the platform, a hologram appeared, grainy, fractured, but clear enough. It showed a damaged escape pod drifting among wreckage. Its warning lights flickered weakly. Then, a ship appeared, small, human in design. Its hull bore marks of wear, but its engines burned bright. The ship extended arms, pulling the pod closer. The image froze there, the moment of rescue captured in light. Gasps filled the chamber. Delegates leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the projection. Even Rin felt a chill run down his spine. The vessel in the image was real, and human. The council leader raised a hand. This is evidence. Yet it does not prove the pilot's identity. Commander Rin, do you claim this act as your own? Rin's mouth felt dry. He stared at the frozen image. The ship looked familiar in a distant way, like a shadow from the edge of memory, but he could not place it. He wanted to speak the truth, yet the truth was unclear even to him. Finally, he answered, his voice steady. I do not remember this rescue. But I will not deny that it may be true. If I was that pilot, then I acted as any human would because saving life is what we must do. The words spread through the hall like a calm wave. Some frowned, others nodded, but all listened. The princess smiled faintly, as though satisfied. She stepped forward, her voice strong again. You see, Council. Humanity is young, yes. Small, yes. But their courage is not small. They risk themselves for others, even strangers, even enemies. This is the truth I have carried with me since that day. The rival voices rose again. A tall delegate from the Krull Dominion spoke harshly, his many eyes blinking at once. Or perhaps this is nothing but a trick. The human seeks to rise in power through lies, using your memory, princess. Why should we trust such a fragile race with honor? Rin turned toward the delegate, his voice calm but firm. It is not honor I seek. Humanity asks only for a place among the stars, equal to others. If this story gives us trust, we will guard it. If it gives us burden, we will carry it. But we will not lie to gain it. The words silenced the hall for a moment. Even the Krull delegate paused, his eyes narrowing but his mouth closing. The council leader leaned forward. This matter cannot be dismissed. The archive proves that a human vessel acted. The princess believes it was Commander Rin. Whether memory fails or not, the act stands recorded. He raised his staff. The council will consider this. Until then, the human envoy will remain guests of the crown. The session ended, and the chamber emptied with a storm of whispers. Some looked at Rin with suspicion, others with curiosity. A few, for the first time, looked with respect. As they left the chamber, Selen whispered, Commander, are you certain you don't remember? That ship, it could have been you. Rin shook his head slowly. I don't know. But if it was me, why do I not remember? Why would a moment like that vanish from my mind? The princess walked beside him, her steps graceful. She glanced at him with her familiar playful smile. Perhaps, she said softly, you remember in your heart, not in your mind. And that is enough. Rin said nothing, but her words lingered. Somewhere deep inside, a feeling stirred like an echo of a memory, distant and faint, waiting to be uncovered. The days on the ranch passed in warmth and rhythm. Rowan no longer counted time by the sun, but by the kittens' little voices. When they woke him at dawn with soft chirps, he rose. When they followed him into the fields, he worked. When they curled around him in the evening, he rested. His life was no longer measured by silence but by company. And yet, behind the joy, Rowan sensed a mystery. The kittens were too unusual to be simple creatures. Their glowing stripes shifted in patterns, pulsing like signals. Their eyes seemed older than their tiny bodies, as if carrying knowledge far beyond their age. At night, when Rowan thought they were asleep, he sometimes saw faint light flickering from the barn. One evening, curiosity won. The sky outside was cloudy, and the air smelled of rain. Rowan took his lantern and walked slowly to the barn. He pushed the door open just enough to look inside. His breath caught. The kittens were gathered in a circle, their glowing stripes shining brighter than he had ever seen. They moved their paws carefully, tracing glowing lines into the dust. Rowan squinted and saw the shapes forming symbols, patterns, pictures. Not random scratches, but writing. Language. For a long moment, Rowan did not move. His heart pounded like it had in his younger days when he stood on alien worlds for the first time. He had seen ruins of old civilizations before, had walked among ancient carvings no one alive could read. The marks in his barn looked the same, like history trying not to be forgotten. The kittens looked up. Their glowing eyes fixed on him, not with fear but calm awareness. One of them, Stripe, stepped forward and placed a paw against his boot. Rowan crouched slowly, joints aching, and whispered, "What are you trying to tell me?" There was no answer in words, but Rowan felt it in the way their eyes held his. These kittens were not simply playing. They were remembering. From that night, Rowan watched them more closely. By day, they acted like any lively young creatures, chasing each other, tumbling in the grass, climbing onto his shoulders when he worked. But by night, their behavior changed. They gathered, they hummed, they traced symbols in glowing lines that faded with dawn. Rowan's soldier's mind pieced the truth together. These were not ordinary animals. They carried memory. They carried a past. The truth revealed itself more fully during a storm. The clouds gathered thick and heavy, lightning splitting the sky above the plains. Rain poured hard on the roof, and thunder rolled like drums. Rowan sat in the barn with the kittens huddled close. They trembled not with fear, but with energy, as though the storm woke something in them. Then it happened. Stripe lifted its head and let out a long, sorrowful note. The others joined, their voices blending into a soft, strange song. Their glowing stripes flared bright, filling the barn with shifting light. Rowan stared as the air shimmered and a vision appeared. Not clear, not solid, but shapes made of light and memory. Rowan saw tall figures, beings who looked like the kittens grown, walking proudly with glowing markings across their bodies. He saw great cities shining like stars, their towers built of crystal and silver. He saw their ships, sleek and radiant, gliding through the black of space. Then the vision darkened. Rowan's chest tightened as he saw fire raining down from the skies, ships breaking apart, and whole worlds burning. The tall glowing beings fell, their light fading into shadows. And then small shapes, fragile and glowing, running, fleeing, hiding. The children of a fallen people. The kittens. The vision ended with a crack of thunder. The barn returned to darkness, lit only by the faint glow of 11 pairs of eyes. Rowan sat motionless, his breath heavy. He understood now. These kittens were not lost strays. They were survivors of something far greater, the last sparks of a people who had been destroyed. Rowan's hands trembled as he leaned forward. His voice was rough but steady. "You've lost your home," he whispered. "But you're not gone. You're here." Stripe climbed into his lap, pressing its small body against his chest. The others gathered around his legs, warm and trusting. Rowan held Stripe gently, his heart filled with something he had not felt in years, not just pity, but duty. For years, Rowan had told himself his days of service were over, that the galaxy no longer needed him. But looking at the kittens now, he knew that was no longer true. They carried a burden too heavy for their small paws. And somehow, fate had placed them in his care. Rowan looked out the barn door at the storm. Lightning split the sky, thunder rolled across the land, and rain washed the plains clean. He had thought his ranch was only a place to rest. But it had become something greater. A sanctuary. The hidden past of the kittens was clear now. They were not ordinary creatures. They were the last of a people who once shone brightly in the galaxy. And Rowan, the lonely retired man, had become their guardian. The fire of purpose, long quiet in his heart, flickered to life again. The storm passed, but the memory of the vision stayed heavy in Rowan's heart. The kittens had shown him their truth. They were survivors, the last children of a great people destroyed by war. Rowan accepted that truth with quiet strength, but a small shadow grew in his mind. If they had escaped, then surely those who destroyed their kind would not stop searching. For days, life seemed peaceful again. Rowan worked the fields with the kittens tumbling through the tall grass. He fixed the fences, carried feed to the barn, and enjoyed the way the little creatures followed him like a flock of shadows. At night, he sometimes found them tracing their glowing symbols again, but now he no longer felt only curiosity. He felt respect, almost reverence. But peace never lasts long on the edge of the frontier. It began one clear evening. The sun was falling behind the plains, painting the sky in gold and violet. Rowan stood by the porch, a mug of warm tea in his hand, when he noticed something unusual. High in the sky, where stars were just beginning to appear, a new light moved. It was not a star. It grew larger, brighter, and carried a steady, unnatural glow. Rowan's heart sank. He knew that light. It was a ship. He set the mug down with a firm hand. Old instincts returned quickly. He had seen such vessels before, back in the years when he wore a uniform and traveled the stars. This was no trading ship, no friendly scout. Its path was too direct, its glow too sharp. It was hunting. Rowan stepped into the barn, where the kittens played among hay bales. Their glowing eyes turned to him, sensing the change in his mood. He spoke softly but firmly. "Stay close. Something is coming." The kittens tilted their heads, chirping in confusion, but they gathered around him. Their stripes glowed faintly, as if reacting to his tension. That night, Rowan barely slept. He sat by the window, watching the sky. The ship grew closer, its light moving across the heavens like a watchful eye. His hand rested on an old chest by the wall. Inside were tools he had promised himself never to touch again, old scanners, survival beacons, and a rifle from his years of service. He had buried those days in dust, but now the past was knocking. By dawn, the ship was visible even in daylight, a dark shape cutting across the clouds. The kittens stayed close to Rowan's boots, uneasy, their eyes wide. When the ship finally descended, the earth trembled. It landed in the wide field beyond the ranch, kicking up waves of dust. The kittens hissed softly, their glowing stripes flashing with alarm. Rowan placed a calming hand on Stripe's head, though his own chest felt heavy. The ship's ramp lowered, and figures stepped out. They were tall, armored, with faces hidden by dark masks. Their movements were precise, their presence cold. Rowan had seen soldiers like these before. They were not here for him. They were here for the kittens. One of the armored figures spoke, its voice harsh and mechanical. "Human. You are sheltering fugitives. Release them." Rowan stood straight, his weathered hands resting at his sides. He had not spoken with authority in years, but the old tone returned easily. "This is my land. You don't give orders here." The figure tilted its head, unmoved. "They are not yours to keep. They are remnants of a lost kind. Dangerous. Surrender them, or be removed." The kittens pressed close against Rowan's legs, trembling but silent. Their glowing stripes flared, as if they understood the danger. Rowan felt the weight of choice pressing on him. He had once sworn to leave battle behind, to live quietly until the end of his days. But looking down at the 11 small lives seeking his protection, he knew he could not stand aside. His voice was calm, but carried steel. "They are under my care. If you want them, you'll have to go through me." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the field. The armored figures shifted, their weapons humming faintly. The air was thick with tension. Rowan's mind worked quickly. He knew his ranch better than anyone. Every fence, every corner, every old system he had built long ago when he first settled here. In those early years, he had installed hidden defenses, simple tools meant to keep wild beasts away, or discourage raiders. He had not used them in decades, but he remembered every switch, every wire. Now, those old defenses would have to wake again. The figures stepped closer. Rowan's hand tightened. Behind him, the kittens let out soft, strange sounds, tones of fear, but also determination. Their stripes glowed brighter, as though power stirred inside them. Rowan glanced at them and felt a surge of strength. He was not alone. The first soldier raised a weapon. Rowan's eyes narrowed. The time for peace had ended. The field was silent, except for the low hum of the hunter's weapons. Rowan stood firm at the edge of his porch, the kittens gathered at his feet, their glowing stripes pulsing in unison. The air smelled of dust and ozone, heavy with the weight of a choice already made. The armored figures advanced, slow and steady. They believed this was simple: one old man, 11 frightened creatures, no chance against trained soldiers. But Rowan was not simply an old man. He was a human who had once walked battlefields across the stars, and humans had a way of surprising those who thought them weak. Rowan stepped back calmly, his hand brushing the hidden switch carved into the porch beam. The hunters noticed nothing. With a quiet click, old systems buried in the soil beneath the ranch came alive. Rowan had built them decades ago not for war, but for safety. Now they would serve a new purpose. The lead hunter lifted its weapon. Last warning, human. Hand them over. Rowan's eyes narrowed. Last chance to turn back. The moment stretched thin, then broke. The hunter raised its arm. In an instant, Rowan struck the second switch. The ground between the ranch and the invaders erupted with a crack of energy. Old defense posts, disguised as broken fence posts, fired arcs of blinding light that slashed the air. The hunters staggered, caught off guard. Move. Rowan barked, guiding the kittens toward the barn. His old voice carried command like it once had on distant warships. The kittens obeyed, darting across the grass with surprising speed. Their glowing stripes brightened, flickering in rhythm as though responding to danger. The hunters regrouped quickly, their armor sparking from the hidden blasts. They returned fire, beams striking the earth, burning lines through the soil. Rowan moved with practiced care, ducking behind the porch railing. He grabbed the old rifle from the chest, its surface worn but steady in his hands. He had thought never to use it again, but tonight the weight felt right. The first hunter charged. Rowan fired once. The shot struck the ground near its feet, kicking up dirt and forcing it to stumble. Not a kill. Rowan never aimed for death unless forced, but enough to slow them down. Meanwhile, the kittens reached the barn. Instead of cowering, they formed a circle inside, their glowing stripes shining brighter than ever. Rowan, glancing over his shoulder, saw the light spilling out through the barn slats. The kittens were doing something powerful. The hunters pressed forward, undeterred by the defenses. Rowan fell back step by step, leading them toward the barn. He could feel the hum of energy in the air, stronger with every passing second. The kitten's glow had grown into a beam of pale light, rising from the barn roof into the night sky. The hunters froze, their helmets turning toward the glow. They spoke in their harsh voices, uneasy for the first time. Rowan's lips curved in a grim smile. The kittens were not helpless. With a shout, Rowan pressed the last hidden control. Old floodlights, powered by solar cells he had installed years ago, blazed to life. The sudden brilliance blinded the hunters, their visors struggling to adjust. Rowan fired again, his shot striking the leader's shoulder and sending sparks across the armor. The hunters staggered, but before they could recover, the barn doors burst open. The kittens stepped out, still small in size, but blazing with light. Their stripes burned like flowing rivers of fire, and their eyes glowed with ancient strength. Together, they released a sound, not a cry, but a deep, harmonious tone that shook the air. The ground quivered. Energy rippled across the field like waves of light. The hunters stumbled again, their weapons faltering, their armor systems failing under the strange vibration. Rowan stood tall beside the kittens, rifle ready. For the first time, the hunters seemed uncertain. One of them shouted, they are not supposed to have power left. Rowan's voice was steady. Seems you miscalculated. The hunters tried to press forward, but the light from the kittens surged brighter, pushing them back step by step. Rowan used the moment, firing precise shots that struck their weapons, forcing them to drop the glowing tools in the dust. The standoff broke. The hunters, disarmed and shaken, retreated toward their ship. Rowan did not chase them. He stood firm, rifle lowered, the kittens gathered at his sides, glowing like small guardians of an ancient light. The lead hunter paused at the ramp, his voice bitter. This is not over, human. You cannot protect them forever. Rowan's answer came cold and clear. Try me. The ship's ramp closed, engines roared, and the vessel lifted into the dark sky, shrinking until it was gone. Silence fell over the ranch. Rowan lowered his rifle slowly, his heart pounding but steady. The kittens pressed close to him, their glow softening, their small bodies warm against his legs. Rowan looked down at them, a tired smile spreading across his face. You did well, he murmured. Better than anyone expected. The barn still glowed faintly from the power they had summoned, like embers after a fire. Rowan knew the hunters would return. Perhaps not tomorrow, perhaps not soon, but they would not forget what had happened here. Yet Rowan also knew something else, he was no longer alone. The kittens were not just survivors, they were fighters in their own way. And together, human and kittens had stood against the shadow of an empire. For the first time in years, Rowan felt the rush of battle not as burden, but as purpose. The galaxy might come knocking again, but when it did, it would not find a lonely old man. It would find a human who remembered how to stand. And 11 glowing heirs of a fallen people who would never be taken again. The morning after the battle dawned quiet, the sun spilling golden light across the rolling fields. Rowan stood on his porch, surveying his ranch. The air smelled of wet earth and fresh grass. Birds chirped in the distance, and for the first time in many days, the only sounds were peaceful ones, the soft rustle of leaves, the creak of the wooden fence, and the tiny footsteps of the kittens. 11 small forms darted through the grass, their glowing stripes fading gently with the morning light. Rowan smiled, leaning on the railing. Despite the recent danger, the kittens moved freely, exploring the world without fear. Their confidence brought warmth to his chest. Not too close to the fence today, Rowan warned, his voice calm but firm. The kittens paused for a moment, then resumed their playful chase. He shook his head and chuckled. Even after everything, they remained curious, lively, and fearless. The night had been long, and Rowan knew the hunters could return. But he also knew they would not take these kittens so easily again. Together, they had fought, and together, they had survived. The ranch was no longer just a home, it had become a stronghold. Rowan spent the day repairing minor damages from the storm and the battle. Some of the fences had bent under the hunters' landing, and the barn doors bore faint scorch marks. The kittens helped in their own way, running across the fields, alerting him to areas needing attention, and keeping spirits high. Their small glowing stripes provided a light in dim corners, making every task feel less lonely. By afternoon, the sun was high, and Rowan finally took a moment to rest. He sat in the porch chair, watching the kittens tumble over each other in the grass. Stripe, the bravest of them, climbed onto his lap, purring softly. Rowan ran his hand along its soft fur, a quiet peace settling in his heart. "You've changed my life, little ones," he murmured. "I thought I wanted only quiet. But I see now, this is better." The kittens chirped softly, as if agreeing. Rowan laughed. They did not understand his words completely, but he did not need them to. Their presence spoke more than words ever could. As evening approached, Rowan gathered food for the kittens. Bowls of milk and scraps of meat were set in the barn, and the kittens ate eagerly. Afterward, they curled around him in the warmth of the fading light. Rowan watched them closely, remembering the vision they had shared weeks before, the history of their people, the destruction they had survived, and the journey that had brought them here. He realized something important: peace was not the absence of danger, but the ability to protect those you cared for. And he had done that. For the first time in years, Rowan felt he was truly needed. Night fell gently, stars shining brightly above the ranch. Rowan lit a lantern inside the barn, casting a warm glow over the kittens as they explored and played. He sat among them, feeling their soft bodies press against his legs, their tiny chirps filling the air. The fear and uncertainty of the past days had faded, leaving a quiet joy that he had not known for decades. Rowan's thoughts wandered to the future. The hunters might come again, but he would be ready. He had the ranch, the kittens, and his old knowledge of the world beyond the stars. And he had the bond he shared with these small, glowing creatures. They were no longer just his responsibility, they were his family. The kittens, sensing the calm, curled close to him, forming a circle of warmth. Rowan gently stroked their heads, smiling down at each one. Glow, Ash, Smallfoot, and the others all nestled near him, their soft purrs creating a rhythm that matched the quiet of the night. Outside, the fields stretched wide and golden, the tall grass swaying gently in the evening breeze. Rowan took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the scent of the land. The ranch had survived storms, hunters, and uncertainty. And so had they all. He leaned back, watching the sky slowly darken. Stars dotted the heavens like scattered diamonds, and he felt a connection to the galaxy he had once traveled so far to see. Rowan had left behind ships and distant worlds, but he had found something more precious: a home, a purpose, and a family that would never leave him. The night deepened, but Rowan felt no fear. The kittens glowed softly in the dim light, and for the first time in a long time, he felt truly at peace. He knew the dangers of the galaxy might return, but he also knew he was not alone. And so, in the quiet of the plains, surrounded by 11 small lives that carried the light of their people, Rowan closed his eyes, feeling warmth and hope fill his heart. The ranch was safe. The kittens were safe. And Rowan, the lonely retired human, had finally found a life worth living. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter that night, as if acknowledging the bond between a man and 11 small, glowing beings who had chosen to trust him. Together, they would face whatever the future held, but for now, the ranch was their sanctuary, and peace reigned.